Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is E.Broome. I've been sent 19 questions to answer regarding the election, and I've decided to put it on a video because I don't want to miss anyone. I'll begin with number 1. In less than 200 words, explain the reasons for your decision to seek office in the Whitewater region. To begin with, in the next 4 years are going to usher in the biggest challenges in our history. And although I have no desire to be seen as someone who makes a habit of saying, "I told you so," the fact is I began warning people 14 years ago about what would be happening after amalgamation. And it's all here today. Exactly the opposite of what was promised. And now that the next phase of this agenda is underway, I would like to be part of the new council, whose task it will be to guide our region through the difficulties ahead. Therefore, my commitment to you all at this time is, I am resolved to work as a team player with the new council in a mutually respectful manner in order to deal effectively with whatever challenges the team may be called upon to overcome on your behalf. 2. Explain the role of councillor, mayor, reeve, as you understand it. From my perspective, the role of every representative, regardless of rank, is to serve their constituents humbly, competently, and equally. And if I am elected as Whitewater Council in October, that's what I will do. Describe your community involvement in the last 4 years. In 2012, I published my 9-week series, Smeltgate, in several area papers. 2. After I delivered a Muskrat Lake issue to council, which was then set in motion, the official efforts to restore the lake. 3. Next, I addressed the council and opposed the Ottawa River Heritage designation, which led to the council rescinding their prior approval for that designation. 4. I routinely publish letters in the press exposing the provincial M&R MOE property control agenda. 5. The Endangered Species Abuses Acts of the M&R. 6. The activities of unelected municipal officials. And 7. I assisted everyone who came to me with problems and asked for my help. 4. What skills will you bring to the Whitewater Council? I possess expertise in departmental management, planning, communications, and organization. I'm adept at problem solving, dispute resolution, production, evaluation, process expediting, interpersonal relationships, and the research and development environment, where I was considered to be a talented, forward-thinking innovator, and as a consequence, was well regarded in my field. And finally, I have an in-depth understanding of the evolving geopolitical interactions reshaping our world, which without question are soon destined to play a significant role in the decision-making process at every level of Canada's federal, provincial, and municipal governments. Number 5. In your view, what should the top priorities be for the new council? The top priorities for all elected representatives should consist of being above reproach and fair and transparent, publicly accountable, fiscally responsible, and increasingly dedicated to cost reduction and future development, as well as being resolute in protecting the electorate from the constraints and regulatory oppression of unelected bureaucrats in Toronto, County Council, and municipal government administrations. And finally, all members of council should be steadfast in their commitment to keeping a tight rein on capital investment, administrative infrastructure expenditures, taxes, and the cost of municipal services. 6. Excuse me. In what way are you prepared to promote the Whitewater region in order to ensure a sustainable and prosperous future for our township? Well, the short answer is in every possible way. But what those possibilities may be in the future remain difficult to determine, given the numerous development constraints being imposed on our area. Because despite all of this sustainability and future prosperity rhetoric being part of the Council's deliberations for the last 4 years, there has been scant progress in this area. Instead, several new businesses scheduled to open in the Cobden area decided they were not going to follow through, which was a very disappointing loss to the regional tax base and local job seekers. As for promoting the Whitewater region, we certainly offer a full range of camping, fishing, golfing, and other recreational pursuits. However, current economic realities are now placing financial restraints on the discretionary spending of many people. And I can see this becoming even more of a factor with respect to the Whitewater region in the foreseeable future. For example, we have the recent closure of the Logos Land Art Restaurant. What is your strategy for funding road repairs and maintenance in light of the fact that grants which once helped build and pave roads aren't available for maintenance and repair? It would be untrue to say I have a roads repair and maintenance strategy, but with no more grant money available, holding raffles just won't cut the mustard. Because the reality is the only way for council to raise the funding for roads is to either borrow it or raise it. In fact, I am told the new Whitewater CAO recently suggested that council put us in hock to the bank for a cool $2 million. However, when you look at what the province is doing all across southern Ontario, to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars, for infrastructure, solar panels, roads, wind generators, and all sorts of other extravagances, then clearly it's time for us to send a delegation down there to request and then negotiate for the relatively few millions it will take to bring our infrastructure back up to par. Because I have no intention, or neither will I ever agree to, taxing my fellow citizens into further hardships, stress, and possibly financial disaster, simply because no one had the courage to go down to Toronto and lobby for some money. Because the fact is, nothing ventured is nothing gained. And now the time has come to do some serious venturing in Queen's Park. In fact, maybe we can get ourselves on the endangered species list, because there's certainly no shortage of funding for things like that. If elected, will you ensure our roads department incorporates design features for roads, bridges, and traffic circles that allow for the safe passage of large farm equipment? Indeed, I will. Because on new construction, and to the extent it's possible on existing infrastructures, all that's required is to instruct the roads department that these requirements are to be incorporated, and then to see that the roads department carry out the instructions they were given. It's just that simple. 9. When new roads and bridges are proposed for the rural areas with farm equipment traffic, will you ensure that the farm community is consulted to approach those proposals are sized for modern equipment? Yes, I will. 10. Where does agriculture fit into your economic development priorities for the municipality? Well, agriculture is the foundation of all human societies, as without food there can be no life. And I myself was raised on a farm. Indeed, nor does the food we eat come from the store either. Instead, before it gets to the store, it has to come from the land tilled by farmers. Therefore, as we are a predominantly agricultural-based rural region, I know full well that all farmers are ever at the mercy of the elements, changing market conditions, inflation, and many very unforgiving realities. And as there are no guarantees in this life, and especially for a farmer, my priorities for any area of development will always be influenced by my concerns for the best interest of the farming community, because as the source of our daily bread, farmers are our most important residents. 11. It's been 14 years since amalgamation, and there's still a feeling of my fire department, my recreation department, and my roads. So how will you get residents in this municipality to feel as one and not feel separate? Well, that's a difficult question to answer, because the 4 municipalities that amalgamation cobbled together have always chosen to remain separate from one another due to differences in spiritual matters, politics, and ethnic background. Not to mention the inherent rivalries that small communities engender. But at the foundation of it all, we are dealing with human nature, as well as deeply rooted blood, marriage, and economic ties, where despite the very best and the very worst efforts of mankind to do so for millennia, Only a hand of divine providence can change human nature. Nevertheless, in the absence of a unifying cause to rally around, if we endeavor to treat each other with mutual respect, establish lines of communication and form sincere relationships, the my community mindset might gradually evolve into an our community mindset. But to be perfectly frank, I do not anticipate this happening in the short term, because over the last decade since amalgamation, there is very little evidence of any collective perspective developing. Despite the idealistic rhetoric of the provincial politicians who forced this coalition upon us, instead of leaving our municipalities aligned as they were for generations, living peacefully side by side. How do you feel about this, number 11? How do you feel about paved, tar, and chip roads going back to gravel roads? Neither I nor anyone else wants to see crucial infrastructure like our roads degenerate, because the fact is, gravel roads are far superior to paved, tarred, and chipped roads. 13. Do you feel we need 5 fire halls? That's also a very tough call, because I am told there are times when some stations are unable to respond because all of the volunteers were away working at other jobs, which means volunteers should be added to ensure enough people are available to respond when required. In any event, since amalgamation, all 5 halls have remained open. So it's apparent previous council saw no reason to disband them, and as a consequence, my answer is, I do not know whether we need 5 fire halls open or not. Therefore, in order to determine the definitive answer to this question, a study should be conducted to find out what the correct resolution to this issue would be, bearing in mind many people take great comfort in knowing there is a fire hall just down the street, and I myself am one of them. 14. Would you be willing to pursue the government in order to force the cleanup of Muskrat Lake? You bet I would, and I already have, after publishing my 9-week Smeltsgate series back in 2011, which then inspired the Whitewater Council to support a public call to clean up Muskrat Lake. But 3 years later, the end result has been a 13-member committee which was formed to investigate the matter and recommend solutions, instead of the council delegation going down to Toronto and asking the appropriate ministries directly, when are you people going to clean up our lake? And if there is no response, I feel court proceedings should then be initiated before someone dies from the lethal effects of ingesting blue-green algae. For more on this information, go to your computer and Google E.Broome Muskrat Lake issue and watch my presentation to council video. 15. What can council do to protect clean lakes from becoming polluted like Muskrat Lake? Well, there is a limit to what council can do about stopping future pollution, other than putting area lakes under 24-hour surveillance. However, warning signs and educating people about the dangers of medication, chemicals, and other fuel and other contaminants getting into the aquatic environment either directly or indirectly, all of which represent a threat to human, animals, birds, and fish. Therefore, education and public awareness are the key components in addressing this issue. But in the end, barring an accident or the actions of irresponsible people, it all comes down to the character and integrity of individuals. 16. What is your long-term vision for adventure recreation in the area? Well, that is not an easy question to address, because a number of things, such as mountain climbing and safaris, are out of the question. In fact, after whitewater rafting, bungee jumping, running over a family of skunks, camping in the bush when the mother-in-law comes to visit, or outrunning an angry bear at the local dump, there's really not a lot of alternative adventure recreation in the Whitewater at this particular time. Nevertheless, I will give this question some very serious thought and perhaps come up with some adventure recreation ideas later. There have been various reports regarding the high cost of what policing could be in our municipality next year. And since it is a bill that must be paid, what would you be willing to give up in your municipality so we can have a balanced budget? To be perfectly honest, folks, I'm not really inclined to willingly give up anything. because these policing costs are simply a provincial government protection racket, which from the very start simply extorted money from people who did not either have a choice or the money to spare, and especially in today's economic environment. For example, the OPP recently handed the council an unitemized bill for $600,000, at which time the council was told next year's bill would be double what it was this year, to the tune of $1.2 million, and after costing $6.4 billion in 1999, these costs rose to $12.3 billion in 2009, with municipalities paying 60%, and the OPP just got an 8.55% raise in January. My question is, why are we paying $100,000 salaries to patrol car cops only to be handed an unitemized bill for $600,000 of policing this year, and then to be told it's going to cost us $1.2 million next year? In fact, how in the world do the police know they will be providing double the amount of services next year? The answer is they don't. Instead, the province is strip milking a cash cow called the Whitewater region, and my solution is the area municipalities should get together and investigate forming a local police force before the province bleeds us dry, because that's what they're doing, folks, and it's going to get worse. And I have a lot more to say about that matter soon. 18. The cost of operating our water and sewer plants continues to rise. How do you propose to stop this from rising, considering that new pipes are needed in the ground? Well, first of all, we need to get rid of the Ontario Clean Water Agency, Aqua, because this provincial government agency not only has a cost-plus mentality, but a history of putting the wood to taxpayers at every single opportunity. Indeed, area residents will recall the warning letters I put in everybody's mailbox before the council hired Aqua to run our water and sewer facilities in order to avoid accountability. And we had better get rid of Aqua fast before this provincial agency turns out to be even worse news. In fact, a Whitewater official I spoke with 2 weeks ago told me personally, Donald, the coming water and sewer plant expenditures alone are going to sink us. But with the disadvantage of not being privy to information council has, I'm not in a position to make any further recommendations, as recommendations require informed data. But once again, with respect to this very issue, and having had 4 years to do so, council has not come up with any definitive answers either. In the final analysis, everything comes down to the money and where it's going to come from. But ever since this four-way amalgamation was cobbled together 12 years ago, it's no secret where the money's been coming from, because it's been coming from us. However, there's only so much the electorate can pay until they cannot afford to pay any more, and then what? Indeed, the biggest dilemma awaiting the new council will be finding an answer to that very question. How are we going to raise the money without impoverishing the taxpayers? Because more and more people are just getting by as it is, and there's the rub. 19. In 200 words or less, is there anything else you would like the Whitewater region to know about you? Well, not really, because I believe I have said enough about myself already. However, if someone wishes to speak to me personally, I can be reached at 613-646-2632, and I will be most happy to answer your questions at that time. If anyone wants to email me, my email address is lauracunningham037@gmail.com. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. And at this time, I would respectfully ask you that if any of this has hit a responsive chord, I'd like to ask for your vote in October. I'd like to get in there and go to work for you. And that's it. Thank you very much for your time and your consideration.